Hello and welcome to Mississippi Insight. I'm Byron Brown. Thank you for joining us. Campaign politics are in focus this week as candidates meet the deadline for reporting their finances. Governor Tate Reeves reports a huge amount of cash on hand, but challenger Brandon Presley is by no means broke. We'll talk about the campaigns with political analysts Austin Barbour and Brandon Jones. Also, former Governor Phil Bryant fights back amid investigative reporting on his links to the TANF fraud scandal. That's all ahead this Sunday on Mississippi Insight. Mississippi's election season is kicking into gear. We are less than 3 months away from state primaries, and we got a sense last week of where the candidates are with their campaign war chest. With us this morning are Brandon Jones, political director for the SPLC Action Fund and New Southern Majority IEPAC, and Austin Barbour, national political strategist and managing partner of the Clearwater Group. Austin Barbour, welcome back, and Brandon, welcome back to Mississippi Insight this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to be here.
Well, Governor Tate Reeves reported Wednesday that he has more than $9 million in campaign funds. Compared that to the Democratic Brandon Presley's $1.6 million on hand. Austin, how big an advantage is this for the incumbent governor right now?
Well, it's a tremendous advantage. I mean, in politics, to run the kind of campaign that you need to do, you've got to make sure you've got the kind of money that's needed to buy advertising at WJTV and some of your other competitors, and for the governor to have $9 million cash on hand, it's a tremendous advantage. I don't remember another governor. I mean, Haley would have been the closest one that would have had something close to this amount of money going into his reelection. So it's a big deal. Tate was already the slight favorite in this race, but this certainly puts him in a very strong position.
And Brandon, how might this big gap in money work for the commissioner and this disadvantage in the outcome here?
Well, Governor Reeves has never run from behind in terms of money. He has always been a prolific fundraiser. He's proven that again. People may recall he spent about $12 million 4 years ago. That was more than twice what his opponent Jim Hood spent. And so he's accustomed to these large cash advantages. But as you mentioned during the lead up, Presley's campaign fundraising has been nothing to sneeze at. He's broken records for Democrats, at least over the past 20 years. And so I think we'll see that gap narrow. But there's no question, fundraising is important, and Governor Reeves is once again sitting on top of a lot of cash.
Yeah, the Presley campaign made a big deal last week of the governor's campaign videos. Reeves has been using video from the 2019 shot at the New Summit School. That now closed facility has operated by Nancy New, one of the key figures of Mississippi's TANF fraud scandal. Brandon, how has this going to play out with the governor's, image attached to this TANF scandal?
So if I were one of these people who's giving these millions and millions of dollars to Governor Reeves, I might ask why they can't get new video. That's an odd decision to run video from 4 years ago. So I think I might be asking where they're spending their money on. But you're right, the TANF scandal is at the center of this campaign. Over $77 million intended for Mississippi's poorest families gets directed to government, friends of the government, irresponsibly across the state. It's been a big black eye for the state, and it's created this kind of culture of corruption. The governor's piece in this is the cover-up piece. He fired U.S. Attorney Brad Pigott, who was trying to get at the bottom of where this money had gone. And then the DHS, before the auditors got involved, issued this audit that state auditors called a whitewashed audit. And then you also have some of these questionable text messages that Governor Reeves was on as well, where he seems to have some awareness of what's going on and kind of, rocking on along as money is getting directed all over the place that was supposed to go to Mississippi's neediest families. So Brandon Presley, you hear him talking about the TANF scandal, and I think that will continue until November.
And Austin, your thoughts on this ad that ran from the previous campaign, and now what impact could this have with the governor?
Look, the only way that Brandon Presley can win this race is if either Tate Reeves falls off the face of the earth or they're somehow able to attach Tate Reeves to the issues with DHS and the TANF scandal. I agree with Brandon on one thing. It was ridiculous. I'm just as angry as Brandon is and others are about how those dollars were spent. But attaching and trying to attach Tate Reeves to this, it's not going to work. It's just not going to work. It's the best play for Brandon Presley. I get that. but I don't think it's going to be successful at all.
So we tested some of these issues a couple months ago, and what we found out was there's almost total saturation on Mississippians' knowledge of this scandal. Well, the folks we talked to came in at about 92% had some knowledge of what happened with TANF dollars. And so the question that keeps bouncing around this administration is, when you have this kind of gaffe, when you have this kind of mismanagement, when you have this kind of fraud, how does everyone not get some of this on them? And then we don't even have to really speculate. He fired the person who was looking into it. He also had his executive office issue an audit that was considered to be a whitewashed audit. And then you just have those text messages, which I don't think make any of these people look good, including Governor Reeves.
Austin, you have a comment there?
Yeah, listen, I think what's really going to matter to voters is where are the issues, where is Brandon Presley and Tate Reeves on the issues that really matter to them? Healthcare, education, and jobs. And Tate Reeves' record on all three of those issues is sterling. Record job creation. Our schools and our kids are performing at better rates than they ever have, literally in generations. And I think those are the issues that are really going to matter to voters in November.
The Presley campaign is promising an 82-county tour to bolster his campaign. They've told 12 News that they plan to be in Jackson this week. Austin, how important is the metro area to his campaign, and which other regions of the state does he need to focus on?
And are you talking about Presley or Reeves? I'm sorry.
I'm talking about Presley.
Look, both candidates, they got to focus on all 82 counties. When you're running for governor, it's the toughest thing that you'll ever do. And you have to make sure that you've got the most organized campaign. And look, obviously there are more voters in Hinds County than there are in Holmes County. And you're going to spend more time there, but you've got to be as organized throughout the state as you possibly can. Jackson is the largest television market in the state by far. So if you're running for office, you got to make sure you get plenty of earned media in the Jackson media market. You've got great organization throughout every single county. It's super important. I don't think you can win the state, particularly for Brandon Presley, if you don't win the Jackson media market, particularly Metro Jackson. Hinds ranking in Madison County. Sorry, Brandon.
In your thoughts, Brandon, on him coming to the 82-county tour and particularly focusing on the metro area?
Yeah, I think Austin sized it up pretty well. Now, this is something that we have to think about when we think about Brandon Presley's candidacy. He's a political athlete. This is a guy who completed more than 250 town hall meetings in North Mississippi. So he likes to get out there. He likes to press the flesh. He is a very good retail politician. What he's going to have to look at, too, is the stronghold that Governor Reeves has on the Gulf Coast. We all know that the Gulf Coast basically saved Governor Reeves from Bill Waller 4 years ago. And the Gulf Coast has been a strong part of his base. We saw that he spent a lot of time there over the past couple weeks. That's going to be interesting, seeing a Northern District Public Service Commissioner have to go and make his case on the coast. Now, he's shown some ability to do that, but I think that's going to be another important battleground.
Let's talk about when we talk about the governor's race. Go ahead.
I think Brandon's really right. And I will say this, Brandon Presley is a phenomenal retail politician. The guy probably doesn't meet anybody who doesn't like him after they walk away meeting him. But the coast is so key. Tate has found this stronghold on the coast. He found it when he ran for lieutenant governor, and ever since. Brandon's right. And obviously that's as far away from Brandon Presley's home area as you possibly can get in Harrison County and Jackson and Hancock. So somehow Brandon's got to figure out a way to break into that area, and it's not going to be easy because those folks are big Tate Reeves fans, and they have played a huge role in Tate Reeves winning in 2019.
How competitive of a race do you think this race is going to be come the fall between these two top candidates here in Mississippi? Is this going to be a competitive race at all? We'll start with you, Austin.
I do think it's going to be competitive. I really do. Brandon has got, about $1.5 million cash on hand, somewhere right around there. He's certainly going to have the ability to double that, maybe triple that from a fundraising standpoint. The Democrat Governors Association is going to come in and support Brandon. The Biden White House is going to come in and send the DNC in to support Brandon. Mississippi's a cheap state. It just is. So in an off year, when you only have statewide elections in Mississippi and Louisiana, I think Kentucky's the other state.
The third one, yeah.
Yeah, so Mississippi's just an easier place to come in and spend some money. And, both of these parties at the national level have plenty of money to spend. So they're going to make the investment in Commissioner Presley. And I think that's going to mean it is a competitive race. Tate Reeves is still the favorite in this race, but it will be competitive. And they'll get on a debate stage with each other. And, it will matter. What they say will matter.
Brandon, your thoughts? Is it going to be a competitive race?
I think it absolutely is, and we don't really have to extrapolate too much. We have a couple of statewide elections. The past couple have been close. I mean, we talk about Reeves' dominating performance 4 years ago, but let's look at the numbers. It was a 5-point win. It was 45,000 votes were the difference. And so we've already seen close races. I would say that Governor Reeves' unfavorables are even bigger than they were 4 years ago, and Brandon Presley seems to be performing in a way that's pretty special for a Democratic candidate this early in the cycle.
Let's talk a little bit about the lieutenant governor's race. Delbert Hosemann reported a substantial war chest with $3.4 million on hand. His Republican challenger, Chris McDaniel, filed an incomplete report, though. He only sent in a cover sheet to the Secretary of State's office, and it cites about $336,000 on hand. His campaign is disputing that his filing was incomplete. So, Brandon, is the McDaniel's campaign is in any kind of trouble right now?
I think Lieutenant Governor Hosemann would like for Chris McDaniel to lose over the paperwork. I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, this is not great. These are not great optics. But let's be honest, Senator McDaniel's been fighting through optics and paperwork problems his whole political career. He's a tenacious fighter, and he's taking the fight directly to Lieutenant Governor. There have been already some ads by outside groups. There have been ads by the McDaniel campaign. They're very biting. And he thinks he has this way of casting Delbert Hosemann as a kind of a left-leaning Republican in what is a very MAGA, Trump-oriented base. I mean, let's face it, this Republican primary is a rabid group of folks, and they have been electing some pretty rabid political leaders. Chris thinks he can tap into that. And if he can, the lieutenant governor could be in real problems. Now, you have to look no further than the lieutenant governor's recent trip down to Mar-a-Lago to kiss the ring and try to raise money down in Trump land. He's trying to buttress himself against those attacks. But those are effective attacks. And look, there's nobody in the state who can play that music better than Chris McDaniel. Anybody who's ever been on the other side of a Chris McDaniel attack knows he's a pretty effective attack dog.
Austin, are these filings going to have any problems for McDaniel, or is Brandon pretty correct here?
I think Brandon's right. People don't pay attention to that. I mean, I just don't. The only thing that matters are what are the numbers that come out of that. And if Delbert really has a 10-to-1 cash on hand advantage over the McDaniel campaign, that is a big deal. But listen, what Brandon said, that Chris is trying to tap into this sort of MAGA aspect of the Republican primary vote, I would disagree. He already has. A lot of these folks, they are McDaniel people. They were McDaniel supporters in 2014 and before, and just go look at his social media numbers. He's got hundreds of thousands of people who follow him on Facebook, and the vast majority of those are Mississippians. So this is a real race. Okay, it's a real race all the way to August the 8th. I think if you were interviewing Chris McDaniel right now, he probably would admit that he's the underdog in this race. I don't know if he's probably more of a slight underdog in this race, but these two candidates have both got to figure out how they are going to define the other candidate, but also doing it in a way where they can make people feel good about what they have done and what they are going to offer if they are, one continues to be lieutenant governor and one wins the lieutenant governor's race. So campaigns are always sometimes about tearing. I shouldn't say always. Sometimes that was stupid. Campaigns are always about tearing down your opponent, but you got to give people a reason to vote for you. And I think that is exceptionally important for Chris after the 2014 campaign. But Delbert Hosemann has I hadn't seen his numbers, but I would assume Delbert Hosemann's favorables, meaning to someone like you, have a favorable or unfavorable opinion about you, are probably very high. He's a likable guy. He just is. Most people don't know these guys individually, but the ads that he had where they kind of make fun of his name, those are likable ads. So Chris has got to find a way to get people to go, okay, I'm going to give you another chance. And you know, he's going to got to be able to expand his base. So we'll see. That takes time and that takes money. So he's got to overcome this 10-to-1 cash on hand issue. There's no doubt about that. But we got 12 weeks out before August 8th. So they both have time.
The push to call Delbert Hosemann a liberal, or he's too liberal as a Republican, or not conservative enough, is that going to work there, Austin?
I don't think so. I really don't. I mean, under Delbert Hosemann as lieutenant governor, the legislature passed the largest tax increase in the history of our state. Have passed more restrictions on abortion, have done things on both social issues and fiscal issues that matter to Republican primary voters. I don't think that's going to stick. I think that speaks to Chris's base. But he's got to figure out a way to expand outside his base in order to get 50% plus one vote, which is to win on election day. And we'll see. Again, they got 12 weeks to do it. So here we go.
And your thoughts on that, about him being not conservative enough to you?
Yeah, I don't buy any of that. I mean, I think he's been a very conservative leader in a very conservative legislature. And so, Austin just recounted some of that. I think he's been terrible on policy. I think there was some expectation that Delbert Hosemann was going to be some moderating factor in Mississippi politics. We're still waiting for that guy to show up. He's been just as reactionary and conservative as anybody has been throughout the country. He just recently passed some votes that allow us to purge voters, that give the Secretary of State audit power over elections. So I think he's been as wild-eyed and kind of out there as other conservatives have been.
Let's look at the state legislature. Is there any question whether Republicans will maintain their supermajorities in the House and the Senate? Let's begin with you, Brandon. What do you think about that?
The only place, I think the Senate supermajority is fairly safe. Frankly, there just aren't enough ducks on the pond to change that up. The House supermajority, the House didn't function with a Republican supermajority for most of this session, with the absentees and some of the special elections. So that still is a margin call. And when you count in a few, handful of independents that are in the chamber, so you still have a few races that could be close. And so I think the House is where the action is in terms of that supermajority line.
Austin, your thoughts on that?
I can't disagree with anything that Brandon said. I just don't. I don't think there'll be big changes in the sort of the supermajority aspect of this. And look, we'll see. I mean, we're going to have a speaker's race. Obviously, Philip Gunn has decided not to run again. He's had a tremendously successful career as speaker. Got elected in 2011. So what is that? 3 terms. Very successful career, and he's passing the torch. Jason White is sort of the heir apparent. Still got to win that election within your own caucus and your own delegation and in the body of the House. But we'll see what happens there. It's probably a little more interesting than what's going to happen from the supermajority standpoint.
Let's get into the developments into this TANF scandal itself. Former Governor Phil Bryant, we've been talking about that, has launched a campaign to clear his name. He released a batch of texts and emails with some of the key players, including Brett Favre. He's also suing MississippiToday.org over its reporting and comments by the news site's CEO that he claims defamed him. So Brandon, what do you think about what's going on here with what the governor's trying to do here?
This feels like a PR tactic more than a legal one. Mm-hmm. I'm skeptical that we will ever see this lawsuit. I can't imagine why the former governor would want to subject himself to extensive discovery. I don't think he wants to take a deposition. I don't think he wants to respond to requests for production. So I kind of think this is more of a tactic to sort of change the conversation. I think it's notable that moments after he released this site, it was pointed out that no, he didn't release text. In fact, he had no text in there between him and the director of his welfare program. And of course, he's gone on this kind of strange, meandering tour of the last couple of weeks saying, well, we couldn't find those. We had them at one point, we can't find them now, and AT&T and Apple can't find them. It's bad. Now, he's somebody who knows how to communicate. He's someone who does know how to talk. He did that direct on-camera production that's on his website now if you go there and look at it. But I think this is dangerous politics, and I think if he files that lawsuit, it becomes dangerous in a whole host of other legal ways.
Also, your thoughts?
Brandon's the lawyer, not me. So I kind of defer to Brandon on these legal things. Listen, I think Brandon said something that really does matter. And I did watch the 3 or 4 minute long message that Governor Bryant put out. And I thought that was a smart thing to put a message out to say, hey, this is my position on this. This is where I am. But listen, I don't blame Phil Bryant. If you firmly believe that this news organization is defaming you, then I would have swung with that from the very beginning. And look, and I know the lawyer for Phil Bryant, and this guy doesn't play around and he doesn't bluff. But again, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not going to try to get into that. But look, if somebody was saying something about me that I thought was hurting my character and that was absolutely not true, this would be the pathway that I would go down.
If you have comments or questions about today's show or a suggestion for an interview or segment, just drop us a line. Email our producers. The address is news@WJTV.com. Big thanks to Austin Barbour and Brandon Jones for their insights this week. We'll be back next weekend with more of the political and current affairs coverage that you demand. I'm Byron Brown. From all of us here at 12 News, make it a great weekend.